Hi everyone, it's Kathy. Thank you so much for joining me. Today I'll be sharing a Slimline card using the new Octo Elements stamps and die set. And I'm not going to share all of the coloring, I'm only going to share a little bit of it, particularly on the Lifesaver. I'm only going to color in 3 sections, but I did want to share the underpainting that I did on the red sections of the Lifesaver by starting out with B23 and adding that on the outer edges of those rings that are going to be red. I know it sounds weird to put a blue marker under a red marker, but what it does is it desaturates that red, and in some magical way it doesn't turn purple, which is what I expected it to do. And by desaturating that red, it makes it a little bit darker without changing the actual color of the red that I wanted. I did try to do this with a very dark red, but it just didn't look quite right to me. So I went back and did the underpainting with the B32. I went over the B32 with R27, and then I came in with R08 and left a tiny little bit of white space in the very top center of each of the red rings and filled that in with R05. For the white sections of the Lifesaver, I wanted to add a little bit of shading, so I came in with N2 and added that next to the red rings and then along the top and the bottom of the Lifesaver, and then I blended that out with N0, and then I blended those two together with my colorless blender. For the ropes, I started out with my darkest color, which is YR27, and I added that at the very bottom of the rope that is closest to the Lifesaver. And where any of the ropes kind of dipped down, I would do a little line of the YR27 on those dips. Next color I used was YR24 and blended that out. And I just left the very top of the rope white, and then I came in and blended that out with Y23. For the little crab, I used the same technique with the underpainting with the B23, so I left that out. But for the seaweed, I left that in just so you could see where I added in those darkest areas. And I'll be sure to have the Copic markers that I used listed in the description box below for you, as well as all of the products that I used. So with my darkest color for the seaweed, I added that in the areas where the seaweed, where one piece was in front of the other, I would add it to the piece that was behind it, and then also at the very bottom. Then I blended that out with my midtone, and again, I'm leaving tiny little bits of white space at the very tips of the seaweed and then at the very outer edges, especially where there's a curve in the seaweed. And then I blended that out with my lightest color. I decided to color in the little seahorse, who I think is quite possibly the cutest little critter ever, using some teal markers. And then to maintain balance throughout the card, I made sure that I had a teal element up in the top left little circle, and then the second little circle underneath the Lifesaver, and then another teal element in the very bottom circle, which that'll make more sense once I start putting the card together, just to make sure that there was some balance between all of the elements on the front of the card. One of the things I wanted to do on that seahorse was make sure that I had a really good highlight at the very top of his head, as well on his, what are the spikes that go down his back and his wing. I guess it's a wing. So I made sure to leave quite a bit of white space on those areas, and then for his wing I actually used lighter colors. For the sign to go across the Lifesaver, I stamped the sentiment "Seize the Day" from the Best Fishes sentiment set, and then I used the quick strips dies to cut it out in an oval, and I wanted it to stand out from the sign, so I used the same colors that I used for the rope on the Lifesaver and just colored around the edge and then blended so it would be lighter in the center. I had die cut 3 circles, and then I colored them with an even lighter yellow marker so that it would coordinate with the sign on the Lifesaver. And then I started to put my little elements together. And what I like to do is arrange the elements how I want them to be, And I'll actually use liquid glue to glue them together. And then I put my foam squares on the back and adhered the whole bunch of elements as one big piece onto the circles. And I did that for each of the 3 circles. Once I had all of those elements placed on their circles, it was time to put my card together. I had run a piece of patterned paper from the Slimline Buttercup paper pack through my die cut machine with the card builder die, and I used my tape runner to adhere that to the front of a blue note card, which started out at 8.5 by 7. I scored it at 3.5 inches on the 7-inch side, so my finished card is 8.5 by 3.5. I did put a bunch of foam tape on the back of my Lifesaver so that it would stand up as well. Played around with the placement a little bit of my little elements, and then I added liquid glue to the back of each of those circles and added them to the front of the card. And that finishes up my card for today. Thank you so much for joining me. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you've not yet subscribed, we'd love it if you would. And don't forget to ring the bell so you're notified every time a new video is posted. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.